The series kicks off with a young boy wearing Hanafuda earrings, walking through a blizzard carrying his wounded sister on his back. He begs her to stay alive and promises he will do whatever it takes to save her. But how did we get here exactly? Well, to find out exactly what happened, let's jump back a bit. Meet Tanjiro Kamado. Tanjiro lives in a small hut in the mountains of Japan with his younger sister Nezuko, the one that was on his back. We're in the Taisho period, about 100 years ago, and Tanjiro has 4 other younger siblings and his mother, all living with him. Tanjiro's father passed away a few years ago, and he's pretty much the man of the house now. So, life hasn't been too easy for this family. Still, they all love each other very deeply, and Tanjiro is a super devoted and hard-working brother who just wants to see everyone happy. Aside from being a #1 big bro, Tanjiro's main hustle is selling charcoal in the town at the base of the mountain. Today, Tanjiro wants to sell as much charcoal as possible because it's almost New Year's and he wants to buy a huge dinner for his family. What a freaking great guy. I had to put Rokta down for a nap now. Otherwise, he would throw a fit. Ever since Dad passed, he's been glued to your side. Tanjiro's siblings want to come with him to work, but their mother says Tanjiro will be much faster on his own, and he promises to play with them when he returns. In town, we see that Tanjiro is a pretty popular guy, and all the townsfolk are impressed with how much he cares for his family. A young boy asks him for help because he's been accused of breaking a plate. You see, Tanjiro has a super sharp sense of smell and only has to sniff the plate once to know right away that a cat broke it. That's kinda cool. Soon enough, Tanjiro's charcoal basket is empty and he's ready to head back up the mountain. But it's getting really dark, so he's stopped by an elderly man named Sabuto. Sabuto warns Tanjiro of demons that prowl the mountainside at night. Okay, you see, in this world, demons have been around as long as humans can remember, and they are incredibly powerful creatures that feast on human flesh. They are kept at bay by only 2 things: their fatal weakness to sunlight and the Demon Slayer Corps, a cool-as-hell organization that exists to protect humanity from the threat of demons. Sabuto insists that it's too dangerous to be outside at night, so Tanjiro spends the night at his house. The next morning, Tanjiro heads home, but as he gets closer, he starts to smell blood. He runs the rest of the way and is greeted by a truly horrific sight. Every member of Tanjiro's family lies massacred in a pool of blood. Nezuko is the only one that is still breathing, which brings us right back to Tanjiro carrying his sister through the woods to bring her to the doctor in town. Suddenly, Nezuko wakes up and starts growling in an inhuman way. She grabs Tanjiro and throws them both off a nearby cliff. Tanjiro asks Nezuko if she's okay, and she immediately attacks him. Seeing that, Tanjiro is forced to shove the handle of his axe in Nezuko's mouth to stop her from fighting him. Remembering Sabuto's words, Tanjiro realizes that his beloved younger sister is now a full-fledged demon herself. Oh no! Tanjiro is deeply pained by this, but he knows that there is no way Nezuko is responsible for the deaths of their family members. Nezuko starts to grow in size and strength while Tanjiro begs her to stay human. Then, out of nowhere, a dark-haired swordsman leaps through the air and brings his sword right down on Nezuko. Tanjiro pushes his sister out of the way and nearly gets his own head chopped off. Yikes. On top of that, this freaking swordsman is so powerful that his swing creates a huge gust of wind that blasts Tanjiro and Nezuko into a tree. His name is Giyu Tomioka, and he's from the Demon Slayer Corps, which means he has to kill every demon he sees, no matter what. He moves before Tanjiro can even react and grabs Nezuko. He's about to decapitate her, but Tanjiro begs for her life, saying that she has never hurt a human and never would. He smelled an unfamiliar scent back at his house, a scent that must belong to some other demon that killed his family. Giyu isn't swayed by this though. He feels bad for what happened to the Kamados and tells Tanjiro that he is sorry he wasn't there sooner to save his family. But at this point, there can be no changing the past, only fixing the present. Giyu then stabs Nezuko, which enrages Tanjiro. He starts throwing stones and charges straight at him, but he effortlessly knocks Tanjiro out with the back of his sword. However, this charge was just a distraction, and Tanjiro's axe nearly hits Giyu. Giyu is impressed by Tanjiro's resolve, which distracts him enough for Nezuko to break free. Let your emotion drive you to charge him. You are a fool. Instead of attacking, Nezuko leaps in front of her brother's body and protects him. Now, since this kind of behavior is unheard of for a demon, Giyu realizes that maybe Tanjiro was right and Nezuko really is different. So, he spares Nezuko's life and just knocks her unconscious. Later, Tanjiro has a dream where his mother asks him to take care of Nezuko, and when he wakes up, he sees Nezuko wearing a muzzle made of bamboo. Giyu tells Tanjiro to travel to Mount Sagiri to find an old man named Sakonji Orokodaki. He says that this man will train him. Tanjiro then goes back home to give his family a proper burial, vowing that he will someday turn his sister back into a human. Then he takes Nezuko's hand and sets off for Mount Sagiri. Two siblings keep traveling towards their destination of Mount Sagiri. Tanjiro buys a basket to carry Nezuko in, which works because she now has the ability to grow and shrink at will. Also, at night, Tanjiro comes across a temple in the woods and he once again smells blood. He rushes to see if anyone needs help and sees a demon surrounded by corpses. The demon launches towards Tanjiro. Big Bro tries to fight back with his axe, but the demons have super speed, super strength, and a super healing factor. Nezuko, meanwhile, is overwhelmed with hunger at the sight of human bodies, but she manages to suppress it when she sees her brother in danger. Sheesh. Now that's the cleanest kick I have ever seen. Unfortunately, even decapitation isn't enough to kill a demon unless it's done with a special demon slayer's sword. Nezuko fights the demon's body, while Tanjiro gives the demon head, let me finish, a headbutt. Jeez. Tanjiro pins the demon's head to a tree and tackles the main body off a cliff, with Nezuko grabbing Tanjiro's collar at the last minute to save him. They return to the demon's unconscious head, and Tanjiro is about to finish it off with his knife. Then, a man in a wooden Tengu mask shows up, and it's the very guy we are looking for, Sakonji Orokodaki. He tells Tanjiro the knife won't be enough. He'll have to destroy the head completely using a rock. This isn't the scent I found at my house. It's different. But I still have to finish him off. Tanjiro hesitates to crush the demon's head, and Orokodaki thinks to himself that Tanjiro is far too kind to ever be a demon slayer. The sun comes up and the demon melts into ash. Orokodaki slaps Tanjiro and chastises him for being too indecisive. He says that if Tanjiro is committed to traveling around with the demon, he has to be ready to kill both Nezuko and himself if she ever eats a human. He then says he will test Tanjiro to see if he is fit for the Demon Slayer Corps. For his test, Orokodaki brings Tanjiro far up Mount Sagiri where the air is super thin, and tells him that he must find his own way back down the mountain by daybreak. These traps were set by a human, which means their scent sticks out to me. Tanjiro thinks this will be a piece of cake with his sense of smell, but the mountain is filled with traps. At first, Bro struggles and gets hit by basically every trap. But Tanjiro takes a deep breath and is able to separate that natural mountain sense from the smell of traps. It's a brutal journey, but Tanjiro makes it back right at daybreak and collapses on Orokodaki's doorstep. Orokodaki sees Tanjiro's determination and accepts him as a student. Before he can really start his training, it's time for Tanjiro to get a quick history lesson about demons and slayers. The Demon Slayer Corps has hundreds of members, and although they aren't officially recognized by the government, they have been around protecting humanity since ancient times. Nobody knows where demons come from, only that they have an unending hunger for human flesh and a wide range of different powers. A demon's strength is directly proportional to the amount of humans they've devoured, and the strongest ones are able to take on stronger forms and even use spells called blood demon arts. In order for Tanjiro to become a demon slayer, he must first prove himself to Urokudaki and then survive the final selection process. Every day, Tanjiro repeats his training routine of running up and down the mountain, followed by a couple thousand sword swings. He keeps improving, but Urokudaki is a merciless trainer and keeps making the traps more and more dangerous. It made moving a lot harder. Tanjiro also starts to learn about different sword techniques. See, in this verse, all sword techniques stem from different breathing styles, and every breathing style has its own specialty. Urokudaki's specialty is water breathing, which allows its user to move as naturally and flexibly as water. Urokudaki is going to teach Tanjiro the 10 different water breathing forms that will let him adapt to any combat situation. But first, Tanjiro has to master total concentration breathing, which will help increase his overall combat abilities. An entire year of brutal training goes by, and through the entire period, Nezuko remains asleep in Urokudaki's house. Finally, Urokudaki brings Tanjiro to a clearing and tells him it's time for his last test. Before them sits a giant boulder, and Urokudaki tells Tanjiro he can only participate in the final selection if he is able to slice all the way through the boulder. If you can cut this boulder in two, I'll allow you to enter the final selection. Tanjiro is shocked at this seemingly impossible task, and no matter how many times he tries, he can't even make a dent in the thing. For months, he tries to slice the rock to no success and begins to feel hopeless. One day, a young man in a fox mask appears in front of Tanjiro and tells him to quit his whining. This is Sabito, a fellow student of Urokudaki's, and he gives Tanjiro a proper thrashing. Then, Tanjiro meets another young student named Makomo, who gives him advice on everything he's doing wrong and helps him to master his breathing techniques. This whole good cop, bad cop routine keeps going for another 6 months. Please tell me you saw that? The way that guy hit me, his swing didn't lose an ounce of power. Sabito keeps sparring and kicking Tanjiro's ass, and Makomo keeps helping him back up. Tanjiro learns that the two are orphans who were raised by Urokudaki, but failed the final selection process. Tanjiro continues to train until it feels like his limbs are going to fall off, and eventually, he's ready for a real match against Sabito. The fight is over in an instant, and for the first time, Tanjiro makes the first strike. He slices Sabito's mask in two and sees his smiling face for the first time. Sabito and Makomo fade into the mist, and Tanjiro realizes that what he sliced in half wasn't really Sabito's mask at all, but the giant boulder. Tanjiro stands triumphant in front of the split boulder and realizes the reason he finally won is because he's now learned how to detect the opening thread. Basically, this guy's sense of smell is so good that he can detect the optimal path from his sword to his target, and it appears to him in the form of an imaginary thread. In other words, thanks to this opening thread, Tanjiro can easily trace a demon's weak point and slice it up like sashimi. How cool is that? Then Urokudaki shows up and tells Tanjiro that honestly, he never had